the rally's over, they can march from the ellipse, take the effing knives away. Then they can march to the Capitol.
Now, the Washington Post reports that the new video footage and internal Secret Service emails will corroborate that fairly explosive testimony. The Post also reveals, and this is key, other internal emails likely to be revealed at the hearing further buttress accounts about staff members warning Trump about the risk and then the reality of violence that day as he continued to press nervous Secret Service agents to take him to the Capitol to join his supporters marching there, the three people said. Those emails will reportedly show that Secret Service agents tried to frantically secure Trump a path to go to the Capitol with his supporters, only to be rebuffed by DC police. In other words, the president knew his supporters were armed. He wanted to let them keep those weapons, and he wanted to personally urge them to keep marching to the Capitol. That is not all we are expected to hear about tomorrow. Post reports that some of the Secret Service emails obtained by the committee could throw a sharp spotlight on Tony Ornato, the Secret Service leader turned Trump political aide. According to testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, Ornato relayed to Hutchinson an explosive account about Trump's attempt to press on towards the Capitol that day, though Ornato is rumored to dispute Hutchinson's account. So now, with the new correspondence that the committee has obtained, by tomorrow, we may all have conclusive evidence about what exactly Donald Trump was trying to do and with whom on January 6th. Joining us now is Jacqueline Alamany, Congressional Investigations.
The book of Luke, chapter 40, verse 12, talks about a man's house, talks about a robbery, talks about a thief, talks about being unprepared, that if the owner of the house or if the host of the house would have known when the thief was going to come, he or she would have stayed in the house. That way they could have protected their goods. The fox did not just get into the hen house on January the 6th. Where the fox got into the hen house was in the latter part of Reagan's administration, whenever they started lying purposely to the American people about Saddam Hussein going to war with various people because they didn't like their prerogative for whatever reason. And of course, it was Saddam Hussein that threatened George Walter Bush, H. Walter Bush, during Desert Storm and Desert Shield. And it was basically young Bush that basically wanted to go back over into that area because of that very reason. Which I think the first of the war is what prompted 9/11. A matter of fact, I'm almost 100% sure that if things would have been handled properly in 88, 89, and 90, pertaining to biblical Bible prophecy, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. So, by me saying that, the fox did not get into the hen house January the 6th. It was January the 6th whenever we started seeing the results from what happened in the late 80s in the Ronald Reagan and the Bush era pertaining to 9/11. This whole fiasco, and that's exactly what it is, it's a fiasco. And it's just like a bunch of studio orchestrators or editors or publishers, whatever category you want to put them in. And this is like their stage, and they're presenting this chaos in front of the American people to keep them bewildered, to keep them confused, to keep them blinded. That way, nobody knows the correct answer or nobody knows the wrong answer. That way, everybody just has to kind of pick and choose between what they feel. Well, I got news for you. The information that this individual is coming on momentarily after this lady here gets through talking is pretty well going to sum it up towards Donald Trump in his extensive way towards busting up and breaking up an election that is totally illegal in America. And it doesn't matter if it's on a local county level or a state level or a federal level, if I was to go on election day or election night and stir up a bunch of stuff in one of these election booths, I guarantee you I would wind up in jail, thrown in there by my heels, and there wouldn't be no ifs, ands, or buts about it that I was trying to either stop the election or hinder the election or even throw the election, just like Donald J. Trump was trying to do January the 6th. Now, this is where the controversy comes in at. Can anybody prove by testimony that Donald J. Trump knew exactly on January the 6th that he had in fact lost the election and that he was purposely trying to stir up a bunch of chaos? You know, I was accused up here in LBL towards challenging the system. And I have said this before, it wasn't that I was challenging the system, it was the system that was challenging me. Because according to the way that I understand the Bible and the United States and our Constitution, we have always been a nation that stood up for righteousness and godliness versus unrighteousness and ungodliness. That's the reason why that I actually thought that it was a it was a win-win situation pertaining to my testimony up here in Paducah, Kentucky, standing in front of a federal judge whenever they was questioning me whether or not I had any intentions towards wanting to take down, kill, assassinate, mutilate the very axis of evil that is now walking around in a carnally, fleshly body. That's what our policy stands for, towards going after the violators of those that have violated not just the Ten Commandments, but our laws in general that was built or established around the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. It's not, it's not thou shalt kill. It's thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. It's not thou shalt steal. It's thou shalt not steal. So, what has surfaced here on January the 6th is basically the undertow, I'm going to use that analogy, the undertow that whatever the tide takes out, the tide brings back in. And because things have become so radical here in America with our politics, and it's very, very obvious. I mean, whenever you have trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in debt, whenever you have all these gun shootings and all these drug overdoses and all these school problems with not only guns but also with teaching aids, whenever you have all the problems with people committing suicide towards overdoses, whenever you have the problem with every one of our states is basically full pertaining to all the jails because of basically non-violent criminal charges that was placed upon these people's lives over whatever reason. And I could go on and on and on towards the disturbances, towards the money situations, towards COVID, towards now the high prices with the high gas, towards what's going on in Russia. All of these are bad omens. Bad omens that all of a sudden the American people is forced to have to face off on. You can go all the way back into 1989 and 91 and 92 pertaining to the Desert Storm, Desert Shield deal, and then you go to 93 whenever the Twin Towers got hit, then you go with the Waco deal towards what went on in Mount Carmel, and then you go in 1995 pertaining to the Oklahoma deal, in addition to what went on in Atlanta, Georgia with the Olympics, in addition to somebody blowing up an abortion clinic, in addition to what happened on Ruby Ridge. Okay? And there was some more major events that happened in America that was very uncommon or unusual. And then all of a sudden, here come 9/11. Bam. And before basically the dust got settled, they knew just exactly the way that they was going to turn this basically like a Broadway show. They knew exactly how that they was going to turn this. That way it would leave the people confused, and that way they would be able to sit back, play their little showboating game towards getting on national TV in the meantime while they're stuffing their own pockets full while the American people are going backwards. That was the game plan, and that has put us where we are today, towards being in basically total chaos, to the point that now the Republicans don't trust the Democrats don't trust the Republicans, the Baptists don't trust the Methodists don't trust the Church of Christ, the Church of Christ don't trust the Jehovah Witness, the Jehovah Witness don't trust the Assembly of God, the Assembly of God don't trust the Lutherans don't trust the Mormons. I could go on and on and on. But the bottom line is this: who is the author of confusion, and who is out to kill, steal, and destroy according to the Holy Bible? Now, if you'll combine all them problems with now atmospheric global crisisness that's been hitting really, really tough and hard for the past 7, 8, 10 years. I mean, it started out, a little bit hard, but then since then, instead of getting these 500-year storms, we've been getting these storms every year. And instead of the natural recourses or the characteristics of, let's say, a hurricane, even if it's a major hurricane, ordinarily you don't get but 8 to 12 inches of rain, maybe 15 at the very most, out of these storms. And now all of a sudden we're getting 24, 30 inches of rain. We're seeing these deluges coming out of nowhere that's flooding towns and communities. Basically your gully washer type communities. It's down in the lower plains. And we're seeing all this fentanyl, and we're seeing all the illegal immigrants. Basically 1 million of them has come over to America illegally just this year alone. So whenever you get to stacking one problem on top of another problem on top of another problem, guess what it spells? Doomsday, catastrophe, a total breakdown of the system. That's where we're heading. And as far as I'm concerned, January the 6th was just a little bit more cream on top of the cake towards what's actually going to occur, because the big charade still hadn't happened yet, pertaining to the total collapse of our system and the total collapse of our laws and the total collapse of this and the total collapse of that. That's what we're staring down the barrels of, especially this winter with what's going on with Russia, especially if Russia decides, their government over there decides that they're going to start playing dirty pool by start throwing nukes at various countries, maybe possibly even our own. You're going to see just exactly what the President of the United States has been spilling out for the past week now, pertaining to Armageddon. If you know anything at all about the Bible, and you know anything at all about Revelations and Daniel and the teachings of biblical Bible prophecy, you'll know what Armageddon means. Now, in 1989, when I was led of God of starting a crusade in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and I had an apocalyptic display made of the four horsemen, as well as the Lord Jesus Christ coming back in the 1,000-year millennium with the saints of God, and a sign that was on top of it that was engraved by an engraver in Paducah, Kentucky, out of maple oak or something. I don't know what it was exactly, but that sign read Apocalypse. I think it read Apocalypse. It may have said Armageddon, but I'm pretty sure it said Apocalypse. But really, either or, regardless whether it's Apocalypse or Armageddon, it still basically spells doomsday. All I was trying to do was give out signals, warnings to the general public of certain things that the public needed to be aware of, towards trying to prep them and warn them and give out advisories to them, not to hurt them, but to help them. You know, whenever you get to looking at the crucifixion of Christ, and I realize I'm bouncing around here just a little bit, pertaining to Jesus being a rebel, it was Jesus that actually created a brand new system that he was introducing to the centurion Roman Empire over there at the time, that they thought was just absolutely unheard of, because the only thing that they had practiced and heard of was the old Judaism laws pertaining to an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. They'd never heard these theories or these ideals coming out of somebody towards turning thy cheek and offering thy other, towards loving thy enemy. They just could not even begin to fathom where this type of philosophy come from. So because Jesus was so bold, and he did challenge the system in a sense, towards calling them heathens, calling them hypocrites, calling them vipers, calling them dogs, calling them basically anything that represented a bad thing, pigs, hogs, dogs, whatever. It offended those people to the degree that they decided that they was going to take out the very one that was trying to take out their original system, because they didn't want that system. All right, 2,000 years now has passed. We've had, the Crusaders. We've had other types of movements. There's been revivals over here in the Western land here in America. There's been a movement, mighty movement, pertaining to what went on in World War II over in Europe and the UK and Sweden and Poland and all those other areas, towards trying to civilize people. But now things just went cold. They've not only went cold, but they've went bold. You see, whenever I stood up doing what I was doing, it wasn't that I was challenging the system. It was the system that was challenging me, because according to the way that I thought the originality of our country was supposed to have been, I was under the impression that the country was supposed to have been under a law towards defending the godly and basically punishing the ungodly. But I seen right quick, pertaining to the resistance movements that kept coming up against me again and again and again, and it wasn't just here in Northwest Tennessee. I had a resistance movement in 1989 by several churches around here that basically abandoned me. I lost my job. I was told to get off the radio station, in which I didn't. I mean, I did after a while whenever my money got tight. But I tried and tried and tried and tried to put out messages that God had showed me and illustrated to me towards things to come. Nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to support. A matter of fact, they turned against me to the point that now they started demonizing me and classifying me towards me being the monster, and trying to step themselves up towards being the good people, the righteous people. Well, once more, it wasn't that I was challenging the system was challenging me, to the degree that I was being attacked, hunted. My brother and I, we was being violated, we was being tormented, we was being harassed, we was being basically belittled, demonized, and dehumanized right here on our own property that we was raised up on as little bitty children. That's what went on in Northwest Tennessee, and this is what's going on right now pertaining to these hearings of January the 6th. The proof is in the pudding, and what you're fixing to hear is going to verify just exactly that if they can't get Donald Trump on neither or either charge, they should be able to go after him on the fact that he has purposely, intentionally violated the standards of any citizen here in the United States towards interfering with a free, fair election. And all the statistics in all the states verify that it was, in fact, a fair election. Now, how come you can't get the main honcho, the leader of the pack, to believe that? Well, that's just it. He does know that. He has looked at that, and he realizes, I have messed up. But now it's to the point that if he was to try to clear up his mess up, then he would, sure enough, he thinks, be looked upon by the people towards truly being messed up. So, rather than come clean, he'd rather just keep the old dog barking and keep everybody guessing towards just exactly what's going on in Donald Trump's mind and in Donald Trump's heart. Listen, please, to this particular night.
Investigations reporter for the Washington Post and one of the reporters who broke this story. Jackie, thank you so much for being here tonight to talk us through this.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
So first off, can you tell us more about how the committee got its hands on these Secret Service correspondence? It sounds like it's a lot of material, and up until this point, there is a real question about how cooperative the service was being with this investigation.
Yeah, Alex, that is a really good place to start. And as my colleague Carol Lennig and I outlined in our piece, it was sort of an ironic twist of events. The committee really came to believe, especially the lawmakers on the committee investigating the January 6th attack, that the Secret Service ultimately was not being cooperative. They came to this conclusion after they almost stumbled across some of the radio frequencies that they ultimately used in the second to last hearing that showed an anonymous Secret Service agent raising serious alarms about the violence that he was seeing on the Capitol. After that moment, the committee then realized that they were still missing quite a few materials, especially these text messages have been, out of all of the communications, most under the spot.
It's a sham. And the reason why I say it's a sham is because we've already done seen on TV with live footage not one crate, not two crates, but if I'm not mistaken, give or take about 5 or 6 fork truck crates stacked, however wide and however deep that a pallet is, going up about 5 or 6 foot high. They had to weight disposition on those pallets. All that paperwork was extremely heavy, but yet now, according to the TV, we only seen just a few of those supposedly top secret classified documents that was laying in the floor, purposely staged or put there so that it would make a good backdrop for the camera. For anybody to get 5 or 6 pallets of nothing but paperwork, and to think that they're only showing us a little bit about this, It's letting me know that the whole thing is turned into a sham. And whenever it comes to the truth, they're picking and choosing towards how much of the truth and what truth that they want to be revealed to the American people. Because like I said, the whole thing has turned into nothing but a big sham. The Republicans don't trust the Democrats. The Democrats don't trust the Republicans. And this is basically the very same thing that started the Civil War, because the Civil War did not start over the issue of legalizing slavery. Why did it not start over legalizing slavery? Because the North had already legalized on the stateside laws pertaining to 2 states already legalizing that. There was already 2 states before the Civil War broke out that had already legalized slavery. And the confusing problem pertaining to nobody is above the law, the problem is we got all these state laws, we got all these different laws here in America that represent the quality of each state, because every one of them is different to some degree, but in some degree they're all the same. You know, there's certain mandated laws like that, you know, like killing. Well, that's against law in any state. That's a federal offense. That's a capital offense. Raping, murdering, stealing, making drugs, making moonshine, making illegal moonshine, making counterfeit money. I mean, we know that that's a given, okay? But whenever they talk about nobody is above the law, well, what law are you talking about? You got the county law, you got the state law, you got the federal law, and then you got the military law. So between the 4, it's pretty obvious that these people have become so confused over here, they really don't know their head from their ass. And it's really become so bizarre in watching this unfold the way that it has, because it's almost like they're a bunch of delinquents. It's almost like that they really and truly are playing this off like it's some sort of a Broadway show, and we're supposed to sit here and gullible it up, eat our popcorn, drink our Coke, and then at the end of the day, go back to work, stand over the water fountain or the break room and discuss towards what kind of idiots that they've all made themselves out of. Unbelievable. Towards the chaos. Once more, the fox got revealed that it was in the hen house January the 8th. But in reality, pertaining to the corruptfulness and the lies and the deceit, oh my God, it started way before then.
The spotlight, although our reporting has also told us that the committee ultimately was not able to obtain these deleted text messages from key players, people like Tony Ornato, during this time period. But at the end of the day, DHS finally started taking a more cooperative posture and delivered one.
According to Eric Snowden, anybody associated with various government groups can basically obtain anybody's email. Now, is that a violation of the privacy rights? Well, yeah, it is. But when has that stopped the judicial system towards it accurately functioning? Because they basically violate people's rights every day in some form or fashion. But this one they're scared of. So this one they're playing it off. They're playing it off like they're stupid. But we know they're not stupid. We know that they know that we know what the hell's going on. We're not dealing with a bunch of people back in the dark ages that wasn't on top of their game towards what these politicians was trying to pull over. We've seen it. We've analyzed it. We've looked at it. We see the consequences in the mess. We see the games that they're playing because they're in charge of the big cameras. They're in charge of the big guns. They're in charge of the big affairs. But while they're in charge of all these things, it's steadily crumbling. And it didn't just start crumbling January the 6th, is my whole point. It just so happens January the 6th is whenever everybody walked out to the playing field towards realizing something is wrong. Well, it's been wrong for a great deal, long time, and it's just building up to this.
0.5 million documents, Microsoft Team chats, emails, text messages from Secret Service agents beyond what the committee had initially asked for. So the committee really has had a plethora of new.
Talk to Eric Snowden.
New communications and documents to piece through to create a better, more cohesive and detailed picture of what exactly happened in the lead up to January 6th, on that day, and in the aftermath.
I still think it surprises a lot of people that the Secret Service may not have been initially cooperative with what was one of the greatest security breaches in our nation's history. I wonder how much you think events of...
They was. That's just it. They was. Just like they was involved in the resistance movement towards how Ronald Reagan talked the superpowers in towards the world was not going to end by a nuclear holocaust, but then shoved biblical Bible prophecy completely off the table and acted as if it never existed. In the meantime, I've been taking punches after punches after punches after punches, and now it has led to this travesty that now is fixing to blow up in everybody's face. Because it's God that has set up these players, regardless whether it's, or let me put it this way, it's God that has allowed for these players to set up, regardless whether it's the Putin player, regardless whether it's the COVID player, regardless whether it's the January 6th player, because of various things that went on. You know, we played for 20 years in Afghanistan, and what did we get? We didn't get the bang for our buck. We lost $2 trillion and billions of dollars worth of equipment, and God only knows that the lives and the suffering that went on during that time. This is all coming to a head. And if we are not smart enough to identify towards the who, the what, the when, and the why, and identify that they still get up there on TV and lie, and maybe they actually are convinced of their own lies about certain things that they're saying. But the bottom line is this: Eric Snowden knows exactly how that anybody can obtain anybody's emails. They're not just whizzed away, just like Hillary Clinton's emails, whenever she zapped them or bleached them. It didn't just vanish. They're out there, and there's a way that you can obtain those emails. And if you don't believe me, start talking to some computer people that knows about how hackers work and how that they can go through the back doors of stuff and where information is stored pertaining to their history. And yeah, they can find out just exactly who said what and when they were saying it pertaining to Secret Service. Now, they're going to try to convince the public that they don't. But we know that they do. Because as far as I know, Eric Snowden is still not permitted to come back to America because he's looked upon not by the American people, but he's looked upon by the corrupt system that even Eric Snowden took the initiative towards challenging the system the same way that the Lord Jesus Christ did 2,000 plus years ago. See, they was paying him big bucks because he was up on top of the chain. And he basically committed treason against them. He rebelled against them. But at the same time, he rebelled against the wicked, faulty system that has violated almost every one of our security privacy rights from the get-go, going all the way back to the beginning. Eric Snowden should actually be looked upon by the American people as being a hero. Not a zero, but a hero. But because certain entities are still in charge here in America, and basically the same bloodthirsty, corrupt people that wants to lie, cheat, finagle, and hoodoo and everything else towards staying afloat and keeping their cameras on their pretty little faces while they're showboating. You figure it out.
Weeks. For example, the Oath Keepers trial, which is ongoing. The notion that Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Oath Keepers, may have had a direct line to a Secret Service agent in the run-up to January 6th. How much do you think the news of that, the evidence there, the mounting scrutiny over the choice to wipe all of these phones carried by Secret Service agents on the 5th and 6th of January, how much that external pressure ultimately led to the agency cooperating with the January 6th committee? Do you have a sense that that was going on internally, a sort of hand-wringing about what to do?
Yeah, and we also know that Secretary Mayorkas was pretty alarmed at the lack of cooperation. At the end of the day, though, Secret Service is sort of its own siloed entity within the Department of Homeland Security, and
they're self-governed. They can do whatever they want to do towards however that they want to do it. And it wasn't established that way. It was established, yes, they do certain secret policies, but all in all, they're still supposed to keep a record to the American people, because if they ever get called down, there's got to be a way for them to defend themselves, or there's got to be a way for the public to basically go after them because of these violations. There's got to be some sort of proof, paper proof, digital proof, whatever you want to call it, in regards towards their moves. That's the way the system was set up. It was set up as a checkmate system, to where one thing checkmated another thing that basically governed this thing. That way, one agency was governing the other agency to prevent for something like this happening. And it's not working. Those governing agencies are not fulfilling their duties as they have been called upon by the American people to do. And it makes me believe that none of them are trustworthy, and that they're all in on this, pertaining to trying to bamboozle and deceive the American people. So even though they spend endless amount of hours, endless amount of TV time, endless amount of talking, if the truth be known, we won't find out the truth, the whole truth, until after a great deal of those people are dead and gone, just like the truth about the assassination of JFK, that they're still trying to conceive and hide from the American people, towards the American people not really knowing the whole truth about the assassination of one of their own presidents. And they said, I'd heard this on a show or two years and years ago, that the reason why that they didn't expose the truth about the JFK assassination, because it was going to affect and destroy too many people's lives. Well, when has America started siding with people that wanted to commit bodily harm and kill one of their own United States presidents? Just like when or who gave Secret Service the unredundant governing power to where basically they can say, do, hide, hurt, manipulate anything and anybody that they want. Nobody has. Nobody has given them this type of power. Once more, each agency was set up to protect or govern the other agency.
the former president has sort of gained this reputation for becoming extremely close and developing these kind of unusual, untraditional relationships with Secret Service agents. For example, Tony Ornato in particular was an agent who worked for the Secret Service, who then went back to work, who then became a Trump administration official and worked directly for the president in a political position. This was something that was really unprecedented, and I think raised a lot of questions and alarms about whether or not he was able to do his job of protecting the president while also serving in a political role and trying to appease the former president. The same with Bobby Engel. A lot of these relationships have been scrutinized as these new details about the Secret Service's actions on the day of January 6th. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow we do see some potential communications that go beyond Tony Ornato and Bobby Engel of people in the service who might have been a bit more sympathetic to the insurrectionists than we would like for our people who serve in the federal government to be.
Jacqueline, where do things stand with Tony Ornato?
Sure, you got sympathizers up there, because there at first they didn't even want to have a hearing. They just wanted to blow it off like it was somebody that went to the library and rented out a book and forgot to turn it back in. That was the whole concept of how that they was trying to put this, or convince the people of this, that, oh, this isn't no big deal. It's just like renting out a book or taking a book out of the library that you're supposed to bring back in a week or 2 weeks, whatever that their policy is, and you forgot to bring it back. Oh, really?
Behind closed doors with the committee, because there's so much.
And we're talking about 5 or 6 pallets full of papers that goes up to about your chest, that weighed something like 1,500, 1,400 pounds per pallet. That's a lot of paperwork being hauled out of the White House that wound up in Donald Trump's, whatever you want to call it, nightclub, clubhouse, whatever category you want to put it in.
Confusion about what exactly happened on January 6th between the Secret Service and Donald Trump.
Yeah, right now, where Tony Ornato stands is he is no longer a government employee. He actually resigned the day he was supposed to conduct an interview with the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General as part of an internal investigation into his actions with regards to January 6th. And he also has yet to appear for another January 6th interview with the congressional committee investigating the insurrection. That being said, he did initially appear for an interview earlier in the spring where he couldn't recall a lot of answers to questions that other witnesses were able to recall. As one committee source phrased it to me quite eloquently, is that these guys, referring to Tony Ornato and Bobby Engel, Trump's Secret Service detail, was that they were not being honest.
Suddenly they created amnesia. They couldn't remember a thing. And you don't think that the people can see through this?
And that what we're going to see tomorrow potentially is more holes being poked in the responses that they were giving to investigators in their closed door depositions. New evidence, information, communication that shows that they didn't they weren't being truthful about not being able to recall certain things, and that their relationships with people like Cassidy Hutchinson and other witnesses who the committee has heard from were actually much closer and trusted than they have let on.
I mean,
I'm telling you, the whole thing is a sham. The whole thing is a sham, and if they'd done the proper and right thing, it would probably bring down the house. Now, I don't know who would be left to pick up the pieces towards taking back over, but it's that corrupt and it's that deep.
To say nothing of the fate of Tony Ornato and Bobby Engel, it could be a real problem for the integrity of the Secret Service if, in fact, that is what we learn tomorrow. Jackie Alamany, congressional investigations reporter for the Washington Post. Great to see you, Jackie. Thanks for making time tonight.
Thanks, Alex.
Up next, Judgment Day, as a jury orders conspiracy theorist Alex Jones to pay nearly $1 billion to the families who have been harassed for nearly 10 years by Sandy Hook truthers who hung on Alex Jones' every word. The attorney who won that massive judgment joins us next.
I'm telling you, if stuff that is going on in America today was to have went on in the old America before basically the Civil War and World War I, there would be no doubt that there would be several people that would be strung up on account of all this crazy stuff going on in America. Not just with Alex Jones, but with the White House, regardless whether it was one party or another, there would be several people that would be lined up and executed. But because our laws has become so liberal, and because there's so many people that's guilty of the same thing, they only have to pretend that they're conducting the laws of, or the courts of justices, but in reality, they're going to swing at it and miss it by 3 foot, because that was their whole intentions to begin with, towards creating a smoke screen similar towards what you're looking at right there, to where, oh, it looks like a person in there, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the way the fog or the smoke is illustrating itself. We really can't tell. I mean, it's confusing. It's a smoke screen, and that's what the officials are going to try to pull over. And though they may bring certain issues out to the American people, ultimately, whenever it's all said and done with, they're still going to walk. They're still going to walk, which tells me that the whole system, regardless whether it's Republican or Democrat, is basically rank. And that's the reason why the Bible says that your house has been left desolate, indicating that the Heavenly Father is no longer in there. He's no longer protecting that house, because He has left that house, and now it leaves room for 7 times more worser things to happen to that house than what the original house had going on, if the house would have just left God and the religious of God alone. But now, since it's been enlarged and God's given them these abilities to do what they've done, and now they've portrayed God, they've committed treason on God. You see, whenever I come back to this area, it was like 9 out of 10 that wanted me gone. It was like 9 out of 10 wanted to punish me, or wanted to bring some sort of retribution into my life, even though that I had never touched them or bothered them or beat them on any kind of a money deal, or got fresh or flirted with any of their wives or girlfriends, or all the above. It was solely being motivated by a demonic, evil, wicked entity. And man, did they ever have fun. They sat around drinking and smoking weed and having their 4-wheeler sex out on the prairie. And man, they used Juby and David as once more a whipping post towards talking about them and bringing up every freaking lie that they could think of from A to Z towards trying to degrade us and demoralize us. And now, the very thing that they intended to be brought to our family, the Jackson family in general, about, now it's coming home to them. And if it ain't coming home to them in one form, it's coming home to them in another form. That's the reason why I say what I say when I say it, that it couldn't have happened to a better group of people. Now, does that mean that I wanted this to happen? No. Does that mean that I take pleasure because this has happened? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, because of what that they began doing and still are doing, I still don't have no confirmation. I still don't have apologies. I still don't have supporters. I still don't have people that's willing to wipe the slate clean. So because of it, we can deal with more hurricanes. We can deal with more floods. We can deal with more pandemics. We can deal with more drug abuse. We can deal with more fighting and corruptfulness here in America. We can deal with a maniac on the other side of the ocean that could possibly send out a nuke any given moment, or over in Korea that could send out a nuke any given moment, or other things that's going on. They have no one to blame but themselves. No one to blame but themselves, because they didn't listen. They didn't want to listen. Just like they didn't want to listen to the Lord Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, or a great deal of all the other prophets that's been called of God, to either bring a certain message or to do a particular thing for the people. They didn't want to listen. Whose fault was it that the door got slammed in the face of society, and it started raining, and it rained for 40 days and 40 nights? Was it Moses' fault? Moses begged them, preached to them, tried to teach them, what you're doing is wrong, and you're going to suffer the consequences of it, because there's too many people involved in this. And then once God slammed the door, it got slammed. Good luck to all of us as we go through these perilous, trying times. Tomorrow, whenever the court wraps this up, which will probably take a day or two or 3 or 4, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they've already got it planned out towards who's going to say what and how they're going to say it, making it that much more unstable, destabilizing it. That way the general population ain't going to know heads from tails. And I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that the people, the perpetrators that was involved in this, gets punished to the fullest extent of the law, regardless whether it's the president, the vice president, or any of the above, the Secret Service, senators, congressmen, gang members, whatever. I hope that whoever has done this gets punished to the fullest extent of the law. But if the law does not go forth towards punishing the main perpetrators, then it's a sham deal. Then it's a makeup deal. Then it becomes laughingstock. Good luck to all of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. And shalom.